Welcome to The Art of Adventure. This is episode 256 with Casey Fenton. The Art of Adventure is the podcast that helps you travel the world, run your business, and embark on an epic quest. I'm your host, lead explorer and guide, Derek Loudermilk. Head on over to derekloudermilk.com to check out the show notes for this episode and all the previous episodes on the show. And this podcast is sponsored by Adventure Quest. Adventure Quest is another business that I run. It's where I lead entrepreneurs and thought leaders on adventure trips around the world. And the next one is in Morocco in October, Moroctober. And that is for influencers, Instagrammers, and thought leaders, and people that are working on growing into those roles. And we've designed both an amazing adventure and a visually stunning experience for you. So if that's something you're interested in, you can find that through derekloudermilk.com as well. All right, on to today's episode with Casey Fenton. Now, he is the founder of CouchSurfing, which before there was Airbnb or Yelp or any of these things, basically this was one of the first global communities for travelers where you can go and stay on someone's couch for free. And he started that more than 10 years ago. And that was also the first time where people were able to review each other, which is the foundation for things like Uber and all these technologies where now we review each other. And his big question there was, how do we establish trust among people that don't know each other? And when I encountered Casey, when I first met him in person, he actually was at a party at my house in Bali. And he was talking about some really interesting things in terms of science and longevity and biology. And so he's really a deep thinker that happens to start companies. He's working on another project right now called Upstock.io, which helps smaller companies give equity to their employees, like normally would only be available to larger companies. But all the things that he's doing are the result of deep questions that he's asking about. And so this conversation is a little bit different than just, how'd you do it, entrepreneur story. We're talking today about how you become the person that you need to be in order to achieve the big targets that you set for yourself. And in particular, we're talking about some of the subtle identity and psychology pieces, and how if you want to change your identity, you can actually recruit other people to tell you, because often we build our identities around what other people say we are. So you can hack this by having other people help you build your identity and offer you reinforcement for the things that you want to become. And so there's just some really interesting insights that he shares around building your identity. Casey also shares the exact ratio of positive feedback to constructive criticism that you need to maintain in order for people to be able to hear you, which I found fascinating and I actually experimented with, and it really works. So you need to give people enough positive feedback that they'll be able to handle any negative or constructive comments. So just I think you're really going to love it. Casey is a fascinating guy, all kinds of worldly experience, startup experience, psychological experience that he'll be able to weave into this conversation. So without further ado, here is Casey Fenton. Casey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Derek. Pleasure to be here with you. I'm very excited about this program.
Yeah. And, we first met actually at my housewarming party in Bali, and someone said, "Oh, that's Casey Fenton, the couchsurfing guy." And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." And when we started talking, you were talking about DNA telomerase, I think, and longevity. And,
yeah.
You struck me as someone who knows a lot about a whole bunch, not just, travel or the projects that you're working on. And I guess one thing that I'm curious about is how you acquire this broad range of knowledge that you have.
Sure. Well, I think it's happened automatically. And the way it's happened, I think, is something pretty straightforward. It's called growth mindset. It's been heard of, pretty more regularly. You hear about this. It's certainly in academia, and then in elementary school now. All elementary schools in the U.S. I think are getting a shot of this. And so what the growth mindset is it's basically a exponential label or an exponential identity. So if somebody says, "Hey, you're really smart," that's fixed. But if somebody says you're a hard worker, that's growth. So I've always, I guess early on, I got lucky enough to have my parents and others label me with this: "You're curious about the world. You love to figure out everything. You love to you persevere. You just keep working hard." Instead of, because those, or what happens with those kinds of labels is that anytime you encounter adversity, it just reminds you that that's just more information in your journey to know more. It doesn't remind you that you're failing. It reminds you that you're learning. So that's a huge, huge advantage right there, because it makes it so that you can go to places that are uncomfortable, or that you might not be, doing a good job right off the bat. But if you have a fixed mindset, like, "Hey, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're the best," something like that, you don't want to jeopardize that good identity. So you don't put yourself in challenging situations. You don't want to learn new things that you might not be good at, and so on. So I've been very, very blessed to have some of that identity growing up, and it's translated into, everywhere I go, I'm curious about learning more. Even if I'm not very good at it, I want to know more. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, and it's definitely something that as a parent, I have two little kids. I try to praise the effort, if they're trying something, rather than saying like, "Oh, you're just smart," or "You're just good at stuff." Mm-hmm. Did your parents intentionally do that for you?
They did not do it intentionally, and it was a mixed bag. So there were times where they would give me a fixed mindset, and I can see how that didn't serve me in my life. And there were times where they gave me a growth mindset. I remember very clearly being out in the driveway in the dirt. I grew up in a small town in Maine, and working on my Saab and just being frustrated. Things weren't working, and I bent some of the on the steering rod and the rack and pinion. With a ball peen hammer, I smashed some of the threads, and I was like, "Gosh darn it, this is horrible!" And I used some more colorful language, and I can't believe, what am I going to do now? I was doing it like, "Dad, this is bad. And I've already been out there for 8 hours toiling in the dirt." And he's like, "You just don't give up, do you? You just keep going." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's me. I keep going." So there you are.
Interesting.
Keep going. When things get tough, that's one thing I'm known for. In startups and whatever, I just keep going. Keep finding a way to make it work.
Did you ever have something where you realized you had a fixed mindset and you were able to change it to a growth mindset?
Yeah. Many things. One of the things that stands out in my childhood the most was just that. It was, people were telling me, like, because I was very competitive. I was the oldest of three boys, and I was just trying my hardest to win in everything. And not necessarily in a good way, let's say. And people say, "Wow, you're the best. Oh, wow, you just won. You're the best. You're the fastest runner," something like that. And so I was always trying to be the best. But the best is really fixed. And so if I wasn't the best in something, I'd say, "That's not important. It doesn't matter. It's not relevant in life," or something. So that really wasn't serving me. It was like I would try to be the best, but I wasn't trying to grow. I was trying to put myself in situations where I could feel the best or look the best. And it was around age, in my teens, where I said, well, really the best is not trying to be the best better than other people. It's to be my own best for myself. And somehow probably professional development materials that are out there in the world probably rubbed off on me in the periphery enough where I said, I shouldn't be competitive. Like, this isn't good. I don't think it's serving me in my relationships. So I changed that. I said, I'm going to do the best for myself, and I'm going to try to always grow more. And then eventually I encountered growth mindset stuff in the last 10 years. And I think that helps really solidify and clarify.
Yeah.
That was just one example. How about yourself?
That's a good question. I think I play a lot of games, played a lot of board games growing up, computer games and card games, all the games. And I really loved winning. And so what I noticed was that I would continue playing against people that I was better than so that I could keep winning. which really doesn't help you develop as a player. So,
right, yeah.
Now it's sort of flipped in that I'm always looking for. It's kind of hard, Sometimes you want to just feel good at something, and so you're like, okay, I'm just going to go do something easy that I know I'm good at. But most of the time, I'm seeking out something that's going to put me off balance, and have me going up against someone that's better, which takes a little bit more sort of focus and willpower to keep showing up like that, for sure.
Yeah, that's a great example. I love that. Yeah, it absolutely takes more. So yeah, I think that was one of the greatest lessons that I've learned in my life, was just, wow, growth mindset, so huge. But that wasn't. I mean, I think that wasn't it. It was also early on. Just so many lessons. Like when I was working in politics, I used to think that the world was black and white. It was all gears turning, being kind of an introvert and very logical. It's just these gears in the background. You file this form and then this result happens. And then also being a computer programmer, you put this code in and exactly this thing happens over there. So I had a very rude awakening when I went to Alaska and I worked in politics for the minority leader. I worked in the State House as a legislative aide. And I discovered that it's not, the world is not like that. It is people and their preferences. It's all people and just kind of what they feel and what doors or gates they want to open based on how they feel. That really changed my mind from trying to look at everything like a kind of a coding or logic exercise into something that was a bit more emotionally intelligent, something more around understanding other people and helping people get their needs met.
And that's become a theme for you with all of your work. It seems like.
I think that's right. I think that's right. I've gone from. I think I've been kind of connecting the world of tech and logic, and my introverted background with the more extroverted human connection. And so I try to marry these together to create more greatness for everyone. Try to create a better world, the world that we want to live in, the world that we're proud and excited to be a part of.
And where does your motivation come from? Is it internal or external?
I think that it's very internal. It's intrinsic, I guess you would say. And in that I think this opportunity we have here just feels so cool. You sit there and you try to imagine a better reality. This one's where it's at, I think. It's really interesting. You never know what's going to happen. Some people like say it's a great simulation, even, that you don't know. It's always like you're not sure. You're on the edge of your seat. What's going to happen? But then we seem to persevere as a species one way or another. And it's really interesting to be a part of and or watch what unfolds. So I can't imagine a more interesting reality to be a part of. And it's meaningful because the distance between the ups and the downs is great. And that gives more meaning and more depth to the human experience.
And you were talking about labels and how you were internalizing what your parents were telling you. And, I think you and I were talking a little bit before the show about how what people tell us leads us to who we become. Can you talk a little bit more about that idea?
Sure. So, not only have I been, doing computer coding and then trying to learn about politics and leadership, I've also been trying to learn about, personal development. And one of the things that I kind of came to in studying all these different systems and doing lots of reading was that this idea of human ego or identity is one of those black boxes we don't know anything about. It's like if you ask 20 people, what's ego? You get 20 different answers, and they all kind of think it's kind of something bad, maybe. And then that's it. Like, it must be bad, so let's not explore it, maybe. So if people want, they can follow along. I have a deck that you can check out as I'm talking right now. You can pause the podcast and open up the deck, and you can follow along slightly and check it out. It's bit.ly/egohack, EGOHACK. And the idea here is that we don't understand how our egos work, but we are constantly driven by them every day and every decision we make, right? So, how is it that we are so driven yet so uninformed? This is a big problem. So, and we're tormented. We suffer because we don't understand them. We're tormented by our egos and other people's egos, so to speak. So the idea is, and we want to have impact to the world. We have great plans. Well, plans aren't enough. You have to be the right person. So you have to have the right identity to be able to have the effect you want in the world, to have the impact you want to have, to make a better world. So if we could understand how our egos work, my idea here is that we could hack it for good. We could hack it with the help of our friends. So the long and short of this deck basically says that we're pattern matching machines, and whatever is in our identity snowballs, and we get more of it. We see more of it in the environment. We automatically see whatever's in our identity. We just see more of it. No matter where we go, we'll just see evidence of it. So if somebody says you're smart, we'll see evidence of me being smart. If somebody says you're not lovable, I'll see evidence that I'm not lovable. Anything really. If I'm a good computer programmer, everywhere I go, it just seems like computer code. I'm noticing the things that have to do with computer coding.
So is this like when people use affirmations, does this sort of change their identity in that way?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely. But I think the insight that this deck that I just shared, and I do this talk around the world, the new piece of information is, and people already know this, but it's just calling it to really become clear, is that we become what other people say we are for social cohesion. And this is similar to you become what the five people you hang out with, who they are. Well, really, I would say if you become who they say that you are for social cohesion, and that is an evolutionary advantage. It's a cooperative advantage. So think of it like this. If people were born and they didn't care what other people think, well, that would be called a sociopath. We would never get to modern society where we are. We're born and we're tormented by what other people think. That's a good thing. That creates empathy and compassion. It creates all of that good cooperative expressions and abilities. And then, I mean, when people are kind of saying, you did it right, you did it wrong, I like you, I don't like you, they're slightly nudging us closer and closer to kind of where the whole thinks that we should be for cooperation. And that's not to say that that's always like that. It certainly increases diversity and increases the chances of our species survival because of that diversity. But you could also be suffering because the place that other people want you to be based on who you're hanging out with or what your culture says may be uncomfortable.
Yes.
So, yeah. So it could be good, it could be bad. It just depends on the crapshoot that you get personally or however you look at it. But if we can hack that with the help of our friends, we could maybe have a better life. So how do you do that? Well, you got to figure out who you do want to be. And that can constantly change, and you can constantly iterate on that. So who do you want to be? It's easy for us to say who we don't want to be. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be like that person over there.
Right.
But to figure out who you do want to be, that takes a little more thought. And it's better if it's positive. I want to be inspiring and uplifting. I want to be energetic, and I want to be hard driving. I want to be compassionate, and I also want to be clear in my word, whatever those things are. Now, if you're trying to tell yourself that you're those things, that has, like, let's say 1 unit of effectiveness. But if other people are telling you that that's how they see you, that will have 3 units of effectiveness, in my opinion. It's my estimation that it's at least 3 times more powerful for other people to program you than for you to program yourself. And if they do it in front of other people, that's even more powerful. Let's say call it 6 units of efficacy, maybe even, and those people confirm it, let's say 12 units of efficacy. You can change immediately who you are on a dime just by other people telling you that you are this way and they see you that way. And if you like what they're saying, then you're like, yeah, you see me that way. That's how I want to be. That's who I am. And your biology wants to be what other people say you are. It will immediately change who you are. It will just snowball. So the name of the game here in the programming world of identity is figure out who you want to be, create small snowballs. It helps when other people create the snowballs for you, and then they roll them downhill. And then those things grow, and you will see the evidence of those things in the environment around you. It's much different to say, you are this now, than to say, oh, you'll be this eventually. Because if you say, you'll be this eventually, or if they say, well, you're not this now, but maybe you will be someday, tell me why you're not this now. You're going to be finding more evidence of not this now, or maybe someday you will be. much different from the evidence of you already are this. So if you can get somebody programmed to you already are this, they'll find the evidence of already are.
So how do you program the people surrounding you to tell you the identity that you want to be?
Sure. There's two ways, active and passive, let's say. Passive would be more like they're not really in on it, and you just are kind of like getting them to help you. So let's say that you want to be more better leader and getting more things done. So anytime that somebody kind of says, "Wow, you just got some things done there. Wow, you did that really quickly." Really, you think so? Thank you for saying that. Thank you. You're responding to them. It's thanks for thanking. So they recognize you and you thank it. Oh, thank you. Really emotionally, really, really powerfully. Thank you so much for calling that out. That really gives me the energy I need to go forward. It really helps me, right? Now they're feeling, wow, he's feeling pretty good about that. They're feeling really good that you're thanking them. So then they're like, yeah, and then they're going to say more about it. And then you say, yeah, thanks more. And so you get this kind of volley back and forth. And it what was just one small thanks suddenly has 10 units of effectiveness because you've got the thanks for thanking effect, right? That's really powerful. It's something so easy to do, and you do that on the things that you want to become, and you don't put as much energy into the things you don't want to become, because then if you're not careful, it can be reinforcing that that's who you are.
Like if someone's like, "Wow, you did a great job demolishing that cheesecake."
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. That's the wrong idea. That is exactly that's an inverse, and we call that because if you can have a growth mindset, right? You can apply these growth mindset labels, like a positive label that's exponential. You're a hard worker. But if you want to have a diminishing label, that might be like, oh, you're a hard worker on cheesecake, right? If you're not trying to eat cheesecake, maybe that's a diminishing label. Or you are somebody who's not lovable. That's a diminishing mindset. Everywhere you go, you find that you're less and less lovable. That's like that graph goes down. Versus you're somebody that people love more and more every day. That graph goes up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, and that's like classical conditioning. Like when you want people to appreciate and help you grow, then you're giving them rewards for that behavior. Mm-hmm. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, yep. So that's the more passive way you can do it. The little bit more active way is you get people in on it with you. You say, hey, check out this deck that I just saw from Casey, or let me explain to you a system, or I have this idea that you become what other people say you are. So I really want to be cool, calm, collected, and have powerful leadership. Can you help me become that? If you start telling me and showing me the evidence of that, I will become that faster. Can you help me do that? And then also, who do you want to become? I'll help you become that too. Let's hack each other. Or you could get a group of people together, an email list even. One of the tests I did with early on in trying to figure this stuff out was my friend Ruben. He came to me and said, I've got a health issue and I'm got a challenge. I'm not getting things done. I said, well, I'm going to email all of our friends. They already know about this test. They already know exactly what's going on. They already know the trick here. But I'm going to tell them in front of you, you're going to be CC'd on this. Hey, Ruben's getting so many things done. It's amazing. I'm embarrassed. I'm not getting more things done. Look at this article I just found that reminds me of him getting things done. It's a great article. And everybody, even though they knew what I was doing, they watched in their minds, they said to me, they watched in their minds that their understanding of Ruben was reprogrammed right before their eyes in some kind of low-level way into that this person is somebody who's getting things done, and they started to treat him differently. So you might ask, like, why is that? Why does that make sense, or how does that work? Well, it works because you have two brains. So you have your neocortex, high-level thinking or rationale brain, and you have a lower level limbic system, which is the emotions, and of course you have the other lower level brain as well. But when you're talking to someone, you may have heard that there's different ways of communicating, right? You've got words, you have tonality, the tone of voice, mm-hmm. and then you also have like body language, right? And have you heard that?
Sure.
Yeah. So there's like 60% is body language, 30% is tonality, not quite right, but maybe 10% is words. The emotional brain is really the tonality and some body language. The intellectual brain, the neocortex, is really like the words. So if we're talking in a very monotonous voice and we're using just words, we're really kind of mostly communicating with the neocortex. But if we're using emotional language and just sounds like I could be like basically saying I like you, but saying just sounds like I like you, and you probably get that impression just from me looking at you and kind of smiling and saying right.
Yeah.
So we know this. Like we know we can communicate that way. I could be saying like you're a really horrible person, and I can't believe I'm talking to you right now. But you really feel that. It's like the higher level brain will register that as he's saying he doesn't like me, but at the lower level brain will be saying he really likes me. So you can communicate on both levels at the same time. Now, so when it comes to this stuff, when it comes to this ego hacking, the high level brain, the neocortex, can understand this depth, this presentation, this process. But the lower level brain, the emotions, cannot at all. It can't process that, can't understand. So you can think all day long that, oh, this isn't going to affect me. And then if I stand there and I give you 5 or 10 fake criticisms in a row, I don't like your shirt, I don't like your orange shirt, I can't believe you're wearing orange today. Why, you're really standing there like that? Well, the tone of your voice sounds horrible. Okay, whatever, make up 10 things. At the end of that, you will feel so horrible. Even though your neocortex, higher level, knows I'm just making it up. If I use the emotion and the tonality, it feels horrible. You want to leave the room. Same thing happens for positive. So if I say, hey, like, I'm so glad that we're having this call today. This call means a lot to me because I get to talk about stuff I really care about, and I get to learn from you, and we get to share it with your listeners, and that's incredible. That's, to me, a really beautiful exchange of knowledge and wisdom, something like that. That is like, even though hey, maybe he's just bullshitting me, but I'm not. That it's going. You can feel it going straight into your limbic system. Do you feel that?
I was like, yeah, this is great.
Right. So it's about the feedback rate, and then there's this other thing you got to add into it. It's not only the tonality. It's about having growth mindset and growth labels. It's getting your friends to help you, but it's also feedback ratio. So one other thing I'd add to this is, like, we could say an infinite number of positive or negative things about anybody. It's about the feedback ratio. So if I tell you, if I want to break some bad news or talk about some challenging things in the future, it helps a lot if I can just tell you ongoing every day about the things I appreciate about you. Like, hey, I really love the tone of your voice. I love that you have such a passion for your listeners. I love that you like to just, no matter any time of day, you're just ready to do a podcast and get this information out there. I appreciate that about you, that your quest for knowledge and your quest for sharing knowledge and wisdom. That's amazing. By the way, there's this one thing I want to talk about that's a little challenging to talk about and blah, 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 something. So you hear about that in management, the shit sandwich, the sandwich, exactly. And we laugh and we say, okay, the sandwich, blah, blah. But no, it's so important. Like, we are biologically tuned to, like, if a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 positive to 1 negative, if we have too much negative, we can't hear what other people say. Mm-hmm. Like, we literally, like, our biology is like, this is pain in my amygdala right now. I'm receiving a pain signal because my world is below a 2-to-1, 2 positive to 1 ratio. And I'm receiving a pain signal straight into my amygdala right now. I don't like it. It comes across as uncomfort and depression. Wow. I want to change this. You're saying something about I didn't take out the trash. I don't even hear you. In fact, it's not my problem. It's your problem. You didn't buy the trash bag, right?
Yeah, and that makes so much sense.
And then, so you didn't buy the trash bag? No, you didn't. You overdrafted the checking account or whatever. Anything. People invent stories to solve their feedback ratio ego debt, as it's known. So it just destroys so many great relationships. People find the love of their life, but they destroy it because we're human and we don't know how our egos work. So if we did, we could hack it, and we could do things like increase your feedback ratio and get up to 4 positive to 1 negative. When you're in that thriving ratio, a great thing happens. You can hear the negative. I mean, let's say you and I are roommates, and I'm just telling you all the time how much I appreciate about being your roommate. And then one day you're like, hey, Casey, I didn't take out the trash. I'm like, yeah, I forgot. Sorry. That slipped my mind. Oops. And that happens when you have a high enough feedback ratio. And I can hear you. Oh, I didn't take out the trash. Sorry.
Wow.
I'll take it out now.
So did, I know that CouchSurfing was one of the first entities to use this sort of ratings and feedback and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Did that play into you starting to understand what we're talking about today?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the biggest lessons I've learned is being able to watch millions and millions of user references, kind of reviews for each other. So in the CouchSurfing system, you have a positive and a negative. You can flag a review as positive or negative, and then you can type something in. So it's qualitative and quantitative. And wow, the interesting tit-for-tat things that would happen, and the transference of ego debt. If somebody gets a negative reference, they're like, I can't believe somebody said something bad about me on the internet. It's so not true. Whatever this person's saying, it's not true, and I'm even convincing myself it's not true. This other person's messed up. Let me type. I'm gonna type why that. No, it's not me. It's you. And you watch this folly. It's like, it's not me. It's you. And you're like, where does it start and end? And it's really hard because the way that didn't know enough back in the day when I was first creating a system about these things, could have created the system in a better way, which would have reduced some of these problems. But you learn in time.
Reduce the sort of like negative feedback loop kind of thing?
Right, to reduce the negative feedback loop. So one way you do it now is like you might have a certain amount of time where you leave a reference, and then those both get posted, and then and that's a better system because then you're not like responding to someone and creating this tit for tat loop. What I see is when people get a negative reference and they say, "Hey, CouchSurfing, you should take this down," and we say, "Well, we don't know who's right or wrong. It's impossible for us to police this. We're just going to leave it up and leave them both up. That's it." Then people would say, well, they'd have an even bigger ego debt with CouchSurfing. They'd say, "You're telling me I'm wrong?" "No, you're wrong." And then they'd be against CouchSurfing. So that was really hard. Had a lot of hard lessons learned there over the years. So there's great ways to create games. If you think about game theory, thinking about Prisoner's Dilemma, thinking about the creating cooperative games in which we can all get more, CouchSurfing being one of them. Pretty much on any online system with reputation is a game that people are playing iteratively. And there's good games and bad games that have a lot of extra drag or inefficiency, and games that are optimized in a great way. So it's so important as all of us are architects of the games in our life and the games that other people play in the world to make a great game where everybody can win and win more instead of being a zero sum or just inefficient.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely want to make sure that I get a CouchSurfing story from you.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
You mentioned Newfoundland or Easter Island.
Yeah. So I think the one fun story, I'll give you a couple quick stories. Early on, before I started CouchSurfing, I just had the idea, and I also registered the domain CouchSurfing in 1999. In the year 2000, I said, I'll do a test. I got a cheap ticket to Iceland, and I didn't know who I was going to stay with, and I emailed a couple of people who had Icelandic websites, no response. So I finally found the University of Iceland student directory, and I was able to kind of do a small hack and extract 1,500 names and email addresses by typing in the student's name. The only student name I could think of was Bjork. So I type in Bjork, and a bunch of Bjorks come up, and then I type in a bunch of other names, and I'm able to extract 1,500 names and email addresses, and that was huge. That was like I was able to send an email to all of those people, and they were able to basically saying, "Hey Bjorn, I'm Casey, I'm coming to Iceland. Here's a bit about me, personal philosophy, whatever." And they would invite me to come stay on their couches. So I had the opposite problem then. I had too many couches to stay on. I went and stayed with the really cool people. We became friends for life. And wow. There's a lot more story there. That I recently went back and visited them.
Nice. That
was really cool. Also, I went and couchsurfed in Easter Island. I went and stayed for a week in Easter Island while I just kind of worked the whole time. Stayed with these local surfer dudes in their house on the couch, and it just was such a fun time. That was a couple of years ago. Went to Newfoundland and stayed with a bunch of philosopher students, and we just talk about free will and determinism while drinking a pint under the road in some of like hidden bar, dark smoky room. That was really fun. Yeah, so there's like lots of endless couchsurfing, of course.
Do you
ventures over the years.
do you continue to try to be productive while you're out couchsurfing?
Oh yeah, I am working 24/7. So I do 90% of my work, maybe 95% from my phone. Most of my work is communication, so I'm continuously communicating with the world. So that's my life. It's more and more communication all the time. So I can do it all from my phone. Mostly, there's some things that I've been getting back to my computer to do. So.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's what a world.
Yeah, it's in Easter Island. It was so cool because I knew that they had this new high-speed satellite, which is, most satellite internet's pretty crap. It's like, a huge packet loss and, on and so on. And this internet was so fast. It was like this new special Google satellite. And so I was able to, it's like 5 megabits or something. So I was able to just walk around, hike around and have high-speed internet and do calls. And nobody even knew I was gone from San Francisco. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And the world's coming to that. That's where the world is.
And the time zone is pretty similar, maybe?
It's like only a couple times I was off, but I only had a 300 millisecond latency for people to know. Usually satellite internet, 1.2 second latency and 20% packet loss. So that was pretty darn great.
So we're almost at the end of our time here.
Yeah.
Do you wanna say a little bit about how what you're working on now, Upstock, has evolved, or what do you think is important for us to hear about your current work?
Sure, I would love to just touch on Upstock a little bit. It's something that I'm so passionate about. I think it's so important for the world, and that is, and I kind of started this when I was in couchsurfing. And the idea is there's no good way to share ownership of a project. As world-changing people, we need to get other people to work on something with us. We need to get everyone's passion and kick-assery, but how do we do that? We don't have a good way. It's like, hey, come work with me. Here's a napkin or handshake agreement. Or then maybe if we have a little bit of money, we say, I'm going to have a lawyer write up a stock plan or something. And then $10,000 later, you get a set of legal docs that nobody understands. They find them, and that's just not really motivating either. So it's hard to really scale and make a company work beyond just maybe a couple of people who can trust each other, who already know each other. That's a big problem. So there's no good way to share that ownership and share that inspiration. So we created a system which is like the Fortune 1000 equity systems, where it's like you can see it. It has great equity docs plus an amazing dashboard. People can see what they own in real time, and seeing is believing. Like if you see it, you can believe it, and you can instantly just add people to it. So that is what it is. It's equity, worker equity as a service for $10 or $20 a month. You can have this worker equity as a service. So pretty powerful. So that's what I'm working on right now, upstock.io/podcast. If you want to download a 2019 equity update, you can.
Cool. And this is something that small companies or even solopreneurs could use as they build their teams, as they build their businesses out, to sort of reward the people that are working on these projects?
That's right. Yes, absolutely. It works well for startups and companies under about a couple hundred employees. So it works very well. And this is the same technology that Google and Facebook are using. So we've basically brought that top shelf technology and we brought it down market to everyone, even pre-formation, even companies that haven't even formed yet can use this. So something I'm pretty proud of.
Awesome.
So that's one thing. And then the other thing I've added is I'm working on a book about hacking identity. It's about hacking destiny, about hacking trust and hacking ego or identity. And in the background is kind of the story of couchsurfing. So just getting going and writing that right now. I've already did a crowdfunding. That was really awesome. Thank you, everybody who contributed to that. And if you want to follow along with me, you can just go to caseyfenton.com and you can sign up on my email list.
Great. Casey, thanks so much for coming on the show. Great to connect with you again, and good luck with your projects.
Thank you so much, Derek. Appreciate it. And thanks for everybody out there for listening.
All right. Bye, Casey.
Bye.
right, another fascinating episode with Casey Fenton. Would love to hear what your takeaways from the episode are. How will you be using this in your life? You can get in touch with either of us on social media. I'm at Derek Loudermilk on Instagram. That's a great place to get in touch. And also follow our move to Portugal. Will be, as this episode comes out, we'll probably be flying like right when the episode comes out. We're moving to Portugal for a few months and then likely spending some time in Eastern Europe, Romania, and doing the digital nomad as a family this year. So some of the 5 Minute Friday episodes will be about that. And yeah, we will be sharing our experience. If you're considering becoming a digital nomad or you have a family and want to be a digital nomad, we'll share some of the details around how we make all of that happen. And of course, I'll also keep you guys updated on the research that I'm doing for my next book project, Experience the Revolution, about transformative experiences like travel and festivals. There's some really cool research out there right now that if you are a traveler or if you do like going to festivals is super cool, how you can really harness these experiences for personal growth and to become a change maker and a leader that the world really needs. All right. Thank you so much for listening today. Now it's your turn to go out there and be adventurous.